Have you ever felt deja vu? Well, as it relates to the latest episode in the rail merger saga, I sure do. Let's once again analyze the UPNS merger application. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Michael's Rail News and Comment. This is the first episode of this series on my new channel. If you want to see the first 19 episodes of this series, they are on my personal channel with a playlist link being in the description. Today, we will be covering the Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern amended merger application, which they submitted to the Surface Transportation Board on April 30th. We'll also be covering some of the reactions to the application and merger, and the UPNS reaction to potential concessions that might be placed on the merger. So let's get into it. Quickly recapping past events, on December 19th, 2025, UP and NS filed their merger application with the Surface Transportation Board, the government regulatory agency responsible for economic regulation of railroads. This application was massive, being 6,649 pages long, split across 4 volumes. Needless to say, the application contained a lot of information, including purported merger benefits, the statement of support from various individuals involved with the merger, impact on competition, the operating plan, the integration plan, statements of support from shippers and politicians, and various agreements and exhibits. With this application submitted, the STB had a decision to make. Was the application complete enough? For major Class 1 railroad merger applications must meet certain criteria in order to be accepted for review. Determining completeness is made much more complicated by the fact that the current Class 1 merger application rule set is untested. This rule set was implemented in 2001 after a series of disruptive mega mergers in the 1990s resulted in widespread service meltdowns and a decrease in competitive options for many shippers. What exactly complete means still isn't 100% set in stone. Side note, while there has been a single Class 1 merger since 2001, the CPKC merger in 2023, its small size allowed it to be judged in the less strict pre-2001. UPNS naturally argued their application was complete, while other parties, mostly other railroads, argued that the application was not complete for various reasons. Ultimately, on January 16, 2026, the STP ruled the application incomplete for 3 reasons. 1. The application did not include a market impact analysis of the merged railroad. 2. The application did not contain the merger agreement between the 2 railroads. And 3. A related application concerning post-merger control of the Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis is treated as a minor transaction rather than a significant transaction. As a result of the rejection, another related application concerning post-merger control of the Peoria and Pekin Union Railway was also rejected. As a result of the STB's rejection, UPNS had to go back and change their application in order to comply with the regulator's requests. On April 30th, 2026, the 2 railroads filed their amended merger application. While the overall structure of the application remains the same, a few key details have changed. For example, the application is even longer now. It's now 7,032 pages long. First, a market impact analysis is included. This includes the amount of traffic UPNS expect to gain from trucks and other railroads. The total number of truckloads that the merged railroad expects to divert to rail has raised from 2 million to 2.1 million, a number which UP CEO Jim Vena called conservative. UPNS expects to divert 206,000 carloads and 303,000 containers from other railroads due to new single-line service. BNSF would experience the most amount of diversions, followed by CSX. Both CN and CPKC would experience far less diversions, possibly due to their more north-south route structures within the United States. Second, the full merger agreement is included. It contains a lot of information, too much for me to dig in detail, but it does contain the mechanics of how the merger would be consummated if approved, the post-merger makeup of management and the board of directors, labor matters, financial matters, stockholder matters, ethical obligations, legal obligations, the conditions under which UP or NS could terminate the merger, etc. Those merger termination conditions also provided new insight into what concessions the 2 railroads would be able to accept from the STB, but more on that later. Third, concerns about the Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis, which is a neutral switching and terminal railroad jointly owned by several major railroads. A post-merger UPNS would own 57.11% of TRRA stock, thereby threatening its neutral status. To rectify this, UPNS originally proposed to temporarily hold their majority stock before selling part of it to the other railroads. Additionally, the two railroads wanted this classified as a minor transaction needing no significant review. However, the STB disagreed. UP&S now proposes to eliminate the temporary holding period and sell their stock immediately upon merger, bypassing the need for a separate transaction. Lastly, there is the refiled application for control of the Peoria and Pekin Union Railway, another neutral switching and terminal railroad. A merged UP&S would own 53.14% of PPU stock post-merger and would sell 3.14% to PPU's other owner, Canadian National. UP&S are also requesting a temporary holding period to facilitate this. There are several smaller changes too. For example, UP&S reduced the number of capacity projects that were needed and increased the number of union jobs created. That is what has changed, but what about the reaction to it? CN, CPKC, BNSF, and CSX have all called upon the STB to once again reject the merger application as incomplete for various reasons, included but not limited to: it does not properly address the downstream effects of the merger, i.e., if UP&S is allowed to happen, what would the other railroads do in response? It does not properly address the post-merger majority stock ownership by UP&S in either the Railcar Pooling Company, TTX, or the Kansas City Terminal Railway. It does not provide any specifics about how UP&S plan to grant another Class 1 access to shippers located on both UP and NS. The market impact analysis section still does not accurately represent the dominant position that UP&S would be in post-merger, with some numbers putting the merged UP&S's market position of up to 50% of freight rail traffic in the United States. Words from the other railroads were harsh. CN Chief Legal Officer Oliver Schoeck said the application was, quote, not serious, unquote. CPKC CEO Keith Creel wondered if UP&S had even listened to the STB and asked what they were trying to hide. CSX said that UP&S were engaging in sandbagging. UP&S responded by saying the STB clearly laid out 3 reasons why the original application was incomplete, and they promptly addressed them. If the STB had more issues, they would have brought them up beforehand. UP&S also said that the criticisms levied by the other railroads have nothing to do with the completeness of the application, and that the issues related to TTX, KCT, and shipper access are better handled during the next phase. They also defended their market impact analysis and downstream effects analysis as sufficient. Meanwhile, opposition to the merger is getting more organized, as CPKC and BNSF, along with a number of large shipper organizations and unions, have banded together, creating the Stop the Rail Merger Coalition to act as a unified front. The group states that the merger would unnecessarily concentrate market power, reduce competition, decrease supply chain resilience, increase prices, hurt shippers, and weaken labor. CSX has made their own merger-related website, voicing concerns that the merger would create an imbalance in the rail network, urging shippers to make their voices heard. CN has had a similar website for a while now, and CN CEO Tracy Robinson recently said that the UP-NS merger would require considerable concessions. Both CSX and CN appear to be spiking down the rhetorical groundwork to ask for said concessions. Speaking of concessions, remember when I said that the merger agreement contained new information about what concessions the two railroads would be willing to accept from the STB? Well, the answer is less than some had hoped. UP-NS would be willing to accept concessions to other railroads in the form of line sales, trackage rights, haulage rights, open access agreements, etc., so long as the total remains below $750 million. Another condition UP-NS would be willing to accept would be the divestiture of either the ex-Wabash or ex-Missouri Pacific between Kansas City and St. Louis, likely to either CSX or CN. Considering these lines are directly parallel, UP-NS's claim that the merger, quote, does not eliminate parallel routes, unquote, is not entirely correct. Anything that includes both the Kansas City-St. Louis divestiture and is above the $750 million threshold is considered a, quote, materially burdensome regulatory condition, unquote, which would give
Union Pacific the right not to consummate the merger if a materially burdensome regulatory condition is imposed in connection with obtaining the requisite regulatory approvals, including the STP approval, subject to paying Norfolk Southern a termination fee of $2.5 billion in certain circumstances.
Imposition of conditions doesn't automatically result in merger termination, telling me that UP-NS might be okay with a level of concessions above $750 million. Mergers have momentum all of their own, so I doubt if the STB approves $800 million or $900 million worth of conditions, UPNS will just walk away from the years-long merger attempt. Speaking as a shareholder in both of these companies, I would personally be pretty angry if the whole thing ended up being called off just because CN, for example, got 50 million extra in trackage rights to the Mexican border. I also can't help but feel that UPNS have given their opponents a new strategy. Request a load of conditions, gather support for them, get them approved, and derail the merger at its final step. We already know that CPKC wants access to chemical plants in Texas and Louisiana, for instance. This could mean the concessions needed to get UPNS and any subsequent mergers approved might be higher. However, I must recognize that opinion is a consequence of my own bias. I think the only acceptable outcome in this scenario is where enough concessions are granted that shippers have at least one more option at their disposal. Taking a more impartial step back, we really don't have a good idea of the level of concessions that might be needed, and we won't until later in the review process. So right now, this all just is speculation. So what comes next? The STB has until the end of the month to once again determine if the application is complete or not. If it isn't, back to the drawing board. But if it is, the next step is the submission of public comments, followed by the submission of responsive applications later on this summer. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Do you think the STB will accept this new application, or will this stage in the process simply drag out further? Please comment below. Thank you to my good friend 2026 Productions for the brief voiceover. Please go check out his channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.